Hi, I'm Stephanie Toman. I'm carrying on with the advanced spreadsheets lecture material video demonstrations. And this is week 5, section 14. And this is continuing on from the previous ones, as you can see here, have already been done. And this one's going to deal with the last two, database functions and nested ifs. Okay, so if we have a look at the database functions and open those up, you can see here all the different database functions that are on the syllabus. The main ones that we will be using are highlighted in red. A database function can't be found in the formula in the drop-downs if that's the way that you tend to find database functions. Have to be found by typing in =d, and then you can see that you get, for example, d average. If I put in a s, I'll get a d sum. If I put in a m, I'll get a min and a max. So that's the way that you find a database function. What it does, as it says up here, it calculates large amounts of data and it enables you to use criteria. And once those conditions are met, then it will carry out functions, database functions, in order to do that. So it will count, it will average, it will sum up, add up, find the maximum, find the minimum, etc. So let's have a look and see how it works. So here we've got an example of a survey, and in here, if I double click, this is about, as it says on the comment, it's about how many people, counting how many people replied to the survey. So the database is the actual data itself, this area here. The G5 is the field. This is the only time in Excel we use the word field instead of range or cell reference. So it's the field. When you click on the field that you want to look at, a database function will look up and down that field. And then the last part of it is the criteria, which is the area built in the top, whereby you put in the different criteria that you want the conditions to adhere to. The method when you're doing this is first, when you're asked a question in the exam, is you add the criteria. Then you place your cursor where you're going to put the answer, and be really careful because sometimes it may not be exactly next to the label. So make sure you're in the right cell. Make sure you draw out from the question the database function you need to use. Use the database survey range, field only, and then add the criteria in that order. So let's have a look and see how we found that there were 75 people who replied to the survey. So let's delete this one, and we're going to use a D count. You can see that I put in =DC, and it brings up a D count. Right, let's put it into the insert function, bring that in because it's a lot easier to use. So the database is all of the database survey, including its headings, all the way down. Okay, happy with that. And now I know it's actually got a defined name of database for that range, but I didn't know that initially. Scroll back up to the top. You can see what we're doing. The field, remember, is the one that we're looking at. In this case, it's going to be who replied. And it's going to look up and down that field, so we don't have to do the range. And you can see that it connects up to the field name. The criteria, I've already put in a 1 for replied. No other criteria, that's all we're going to look at. Highlight that, and then you've already got the example of your answer there. So that's one example. This one here, why do you think we've got an error back on that one? As you can see, I've tried to put in the database defined name, and because I put it in incorrectly, it's not accepted the answer. Another thing is, let's break this down to what we're looking at this time. So we're looking for the maximum, the highest, the most popular, the largest, all have come under a max or a D max in this case. We have the database survey itself. The field we're looking at this time is the age field, so E5. And then we've got the criteria. We're just looking at the oldest person who replied, so we've just got a 1 in the criteria. So escape. Shall we do this one together? I'll delete this. So this time I'm doing a D max because I'm looking for the oldest in this case. We've got the whole database. I'm not going to spell it this time again. I'm going to be careful and just pick it up. Make sure, because I'm in a test question, I have no idea. There's that 107 I'm looking for. I have no idea whether it's named or not. I could go into my FX, want to make life easier. I've already got, let's pop it into there for you. I've already got the database in there. The field is going to be the age, and it definitely is. And then the criteria is about the oldest person who replied. So I have my 1 in the reply, and there's the answer already. I'm sure there's better things to do at 107 than answer a survey, but there you go. Let's go at the min, so D min. Double click. We could type it in or just write it in as we go along if you want to do it slightly differently this time. There we go. Scroll back to the top using the scroll bar, comma, looking at the age, again, comma, and criteria. And you can get the gist of what's going on. This one's been done as well. Let's have a go at this one though. So what this one's, we need to see in J10 here, this is the question here, or the instructions. Calculate average age of those who replied to the survey. Okay, so that's easy enough. So equal D average. And I could start to type database, comma. I can put the age in, and then comma, and then all I'm doing is getting the average age of those who replied. Enter, and then I've got the average. Let's move over to the next sheet, the D average sheet along, and this time we're going to have criteria more than. Let's just get rid of Newcastle for now. So here we've got males who replied, and we found the average. So let's just bring this down. So I'll pop another one in a minute. So in here, we're happy with that. Let's delete it. Let's do it as it would be. So D average, double click. I've got my database. I've already put my criteria in. Let's make sure it's actually on it. Let's go the other way. It's sometimes a bit easier to pick it up. Make sure you don't miss anything off or over highlight. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Comma, I have the age, comma, and then my criteria, and close bracket. And I get the average. If I change the male to a female, the data automatically changes. If, like I had before, I added Newcastle to the criteria, it changes again. If I did a equal D count, and put the database in, oops, see how you can type it in wrong. So I'm going to do a D average again, double click. I'm going to pick it up properly this time. Down to Washington, back up. And if I wanted to change it, maybe I could change it to some. That might work. So the sum of females from Newcastle who replied, so the number of, if you like. I'm going to do the reply this time, and then I'm going to do my criteria. So you can make it whatever you want, really. And there's only four females who replied. The total of them is who replied from Newcastle. Delete that, and you'll get all replies. Copy Durham. Try that one, and you'll get 5 replies. So everything changes automatically. Great little function. You've got here how much you would have to do to find an average. There's an example. If you didn't use the database function, you'd have to get all those individuals through a filter, put them all out, etc. So great little function, something that you need to cover for the exam, but useful as well in real life. Okay, I'm just going to close that one, and we're going to move on to nested functions. Okay, so we have a age, absence, a bonus. Here's an example here of a nested function. You've got an upper, which means you want it capitalized, the name that's in there capitalized, and you only want 3 characters from the left, and that gives us the BOR from Borland capitalized. Okay, but in here we want to do an and we're going to follow this here. So we're in G2. We're going to do if the age is greater than and equal to 40, that's 40 and over, and the absence is below 2 days, then they should receive a bonus of 15%, otherwise no bonus. Okay, so it's not just a true and false statement as it was with the and that we looked at before. This is an if. So it's an if and an and. So if it meets a criteria and it meets another criteria, bring back, give the result of, if it's true, 15%, otherwise nothing, no bonus. Okay, so if we start with our equal if, in the exams, a nice simple way to keep this method straightforward. So double click on the if like we have before in our functions and bring up the fx. I'll take it up here so you can see the question below there. So we now have the if sitting there waiting, and we can get on with our and or our or. And in this case, it's an and. So we can type the and in and open bracket. So this is, as you can see, is happening within the if function. So the if's already put a bracket in for us, and the and is sitting in there. So we need to put in our first argument, which is the age, that's our first instance, is greater than and equal to 40, comma. And the absence, which is F2, is less than 2 days, 2. So we're not including 2, close bracket. So there's our argument. Okay, so it's the and open bracket, first argument, comma, second argument, close bracket. Then if it's true, we want 15 to come back for a 15% bonus. You can put percentage in if you want. If not, we want no bonus. Okay, double click will autofill down to the next blank space, and there you have it. It's worked it all out, and we can get those with the bonus or those without. Let's have a look at the next one, an or on the next one here. There's the or, doing it one way using this method, and the or using the text method. So let's delete those and start with the or with the cell reference method. So equal if, double click, fx, let's bring it down here so you can see the first one, just pop it into there. So if D2 is equal to training or, finance or training, then 100 or otherwise 20. Okay, that's the coming back that we're going to do. So we've got our if, we've got an or, So we type in or, open bracket. So if D2 and is equal to, and we want to find the word finance, there's finance. In order to keep it at finance, when we autofill down here, we need to absolute it using the F4 key while we're there. Okay, and then we're going to put in a comma to separate the or argument. And the second part of the argument is if D2, so back to D2, is equal to training. Once again, we F4 it so that it stays the same and close bracket. Then you've got your 100 or your 20 and OK. You can always check it in the exam as well. Just check the odd one to make sure it is what it says it is, should be. And then we're going to do it the other way. So equal if, open bracket, click on the FX, let's move it just above this one. So our logical argument again this time is or, open bracket, and if D2 is equal to, I'm going to type in finance, speech marked, question, then your comma for the second part of the or. Then you've got your D2 again is equal to speech marked training, speech marks, close bracket, and then you can come back with your 100. Whoops, that can happen if you don't click back down on the next one. As long as you spot it, usually okay, and then hopefully will give us exactly the same answer. The last one we're going to do before we finish is this stop info here, and this is quite common to the test. So this is the one that you would be usually, it would come up basically like this. You would have an area where you'd have to put your answer, and the argument is if F7 is greater than K5 and E7 is less than K7, then it should result in order or otherwise no order. And it uses a table alongside that you can refer to for that information. So once again, if we use an if and double click, we've got the start of our function, nested if. So we click on FX and drop it. We can see everything. So we need to get to that table. Bear with me. I'm just jumping around. Okay, I think that's probably the best place right up there. So our logical argument is and, as we can see, it's in the table and in the question. Open bracket, doesn't have to be capitalized. You can do it in lowercase. So it's asking us if F, need to see, F7, so that one there, is greater than K5. So K5 is this one here. And because it's outside of the autofill, when I take this down, it has to be absoluted. So absolute it while it's still in there. So click on there and then a comma before your second argument. Second part of the argument, and if E7, let's make sure we're right on the E7, good, is less than K7, which is that one. Once again, when I autofill, that won't be included, so we need to keep it the same, so F4 it and close bracket. When we get the result, we want order if true. Notice it's speech marks for us, or no order if false. And that was speech mark as well. OK it, double click it, and it will bring it down. And on the sheet, I've actually put the different ways of doing it because we can use the cell reference as long as we absolute them in that. So remember, when you're starting, equal if, double click, bring up your FX, and then follow with your and, open, and then start to break your function down. Your first argument, comma, second argument, outcome, outcome. First if it's true, second if it's false. So that's typical of a test question. It's really worth doing it, having a go and getting the gist of it. So as long as you remember that absolution, when it's over here outside of the autofill, it should be absolutely fine. Okay. I just wanted to add, that is the syllabus as far as the function is concerned, but the extra folder that you'll see in the lecture materials is for those of you that want to understand how things are broken down when you do more than the level of if function that we did. So I put in some areas. I hope they help. There's a simple if, you know, the sort of ifs that we would have done. If it comes out as 1, you give it a pass or a fail. I'll just bring these down so you can see them. It's got the info at the bottom. There's the if, when you can make it a little bit more complicated by using a key, and it gives you examples of how you can make that a little bit more complicated. In other words, include a third if. There's ifs whereby you can use these in the 365, but it's not available in the 2016 desktop version. Otherwise, you would build up an if like that. And I've given examples of how those ifs build as you go along. There's our and that we've used before, and with just a true or false statement. And then we've got how you build an if as you go along and how it changes. So that might be helpful to some. I've also put in here, get to open, some VLOOKUPs and how you can do nested VLOOKUPs. Use your and in your or as you did before, some practice, which I've already done. Some nested lookups and VLOOKUPs and how they can build too. Okay, so I hope that might help in the real world, but it isn't part of the syllabus. So if you're not interested in taking that further at the moment and you just want to pass your exam, then you've done enough in this week 5 to practice for your functions. So now I'm going to do, following this, I'm going to do the weekly revision on the functions. If that helps you, if you come across something you're not sure of, there's always a solution as well in paper format, but I am going to do some videos on that too before I finish off on week 6 on the demonstrations of lectures. Okay, thank you.